Amanda O'Shea. Hiya, how are you?
Lynn, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, good week.
I've had an amazing week, actually. Yeah, it's been good busy, if that makes sense.
I was going to say, because you're always busy.
Well, yeah, there's a big world out there. There's lots of people to talk to.
There is. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to talk to all of them. That would exhaust me. I'd be spent in 5 minutes.
I'd be done.
Yeah.
But the great thing about radio is you never know who's listening.
That's true. Yeah.
And I love that. I love when you don't know, so you're really talking to yourself.
Mm.
You know?
Well, when we're in training, right, for wireless purposes, they do say you're talking to one person. You have to imagine yourself talking to one person only.
Yeah.
And you have a conversation with that person. That's the way we've been told to do it.
Yeah.
Back in the olden days.
They lock people up for things like that too, just imaginary people and all that.
I've got loads of those.
But that's how it is, right? It's, there's something about, I don't know, for me, the reason that I love this radio crack, this radio lark,
yes,
is that you are just speaking from the heart to, and you don't know who's listening, and somebody might just have jumped in the car, or you don't know where somebody's at in their day, and that's where I see serendipityness kind of play out. I don't know if that's a word, serendipityness.
It is now. I like it.
Very serendipitous.
Yeah,
but it's somebody's just had something going on in their world, in their life. They jump in the car, and then somebody's talking about something on the radio, and it's like, oh, you couldn't make that up. Oh, it's like I was meant to hear that in this moment.
Oh,
right. That's the sort of thing that happens, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I do love that. But I know that there's lots of people listening in. They're telling me now. They're writing in, got requests and everything.
Oh,
yeah. Have you ever been that popular?
No, not until you came out. No, you see, the thing is that now you've given me that little bit of zhuzh.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I need that.
Got your mojo back. Tell me about that. Tell me about the whole mojo thing. Tell me about that.
I don't know what it is. What is that? It's just feeling good, isn't it?
It's just feeling good.
Yeah.
That reminds me of that Gregory Porter. You were talking about him earlier. Gregory Porter song.
Yeah.
Do you know that one?
Feeling good. Did you say it's an a cappella one?
Yeah, there's no instruments, and I'm feeling good, but it's really powerful. It's very, very, worth listening to.
He's our track of the bay today. His new one.
Yeah.
It's awfully good.
Awfully good. So Track of the Bay means it's on just for that day, or has it?
Yes, we play it 3 times throughout the day.
Right.
We choose a song. It gets played again at the weekend as well. And so we highlight a particular new tune.
Yeah.
And Gregory Porter's new one, which is called, according to my list, Revival.
I don't know if I've heard it. So, yeah, great. Have a little listen in. There's something, music is... So we're on here and we're going to be having little chats, and we're talking about wellness and well-being and feeling good and falling back into any of the shows that we've done. We've done a couple already. And the part one, the first show we did is on my YouTube channel. They can go and listen to it. And part 2 will be loaded this week, because I've been a little bit busy. A little bit behind. Sometimes that happens, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you're always busy.
That's life. But it's good, Doug. There's a difference of getting lots done, which is where I feel I'm at now, and being crazy busy, like lots of time's taken up, but not too much gets actioned. So there's a difference, right? We can do a lot having a clear mind, and we don't feel like we're rushed or super busy. But that's the terminology we use, don't we? How are you? Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, I'm quite busy. We talk like that. And there's a difference of people being very busy-minded, but going around in circles. So we'll maybe we talk a bit about that today.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That would be great, because that's where I see people get stuck. So as you know, I'm a coach. I call myself the Loving Life Coach, as in helping children and adults to fall back in love with life and reach their kind of true potential and get an understanding of how their thinking and feeling system works. And within that, I get to see that when people are living in a misunderstanding, which is where a lot of human beings are really innocently, they get stuck. Yeah, they overthink. And that kind of then leads to that sort of insecurity, vulnerability. And from there, our behaviour and our reactions aren't as attractive. So, it's super helpful for me. For me, that's why I call it the biggest secret in the universe. But it's definitely the biggest secret in the Costa Blanca. And it's the biggest secret here right now because when we understand, I can only talk for myself really. So when I understood how my psychological system worked, in truth, my life changed. And, who wouldn't want to hear a bit more about that?
Totally.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But actually, there's lots of people that don't want to hear a lot more about it. Like, I get a lot of resistance.
Really?
So people that have chosen me, for example, obviously they're curious. Yeah. And there's something going on, and they've got to the place where they have gone, right, you know what, I can't do this anymore, or I need a bit of help with this. Or so most of my clients, they're in a good place. They just realise that they need a little bit of help, or they might have gone through a recent sort of change of situation or change of circumstances or shift of something, and they're like, oh, it'd be really, really helpful to just sort of do a program or go do a retreat or do a little program with somebody. So I have people who actually feel like they're at their depths of their despair, and people who are, everything's going tickety-boo in most departments, but just in one department it's not. So somebody might be doing really well in business, but their relationships are kind of like going around in circles, or they're not feeling fulfilled in the area. Or it might be the other way around. People have got everything else sort of sorted, yet their business doesn't seem to quite cut it, or something like that. So often we find that we're not, across the board, we're not completely out of sync everywhere. So, some people can be it can be great 9 to 5 and then something happens, because we've got thinking about stuff. We've got beliefs about stuff. So when we're exploring this sort of understanding of how our mind works, it's, I first start talking about it like how it works for everybody. Not just about how it works for Johnny or Mary or Kathy or whatever, how it works for every single human being on the planet, no matter how much money you got in the bank, no matter whether you've got a job or you haven't got a job, or you've got a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband or wife, or you haven't, or you've got children or you haven't. We take away all the kind of circumstances, and just the fact that you are human means that your psychological system works the same as other humans.
Does that go for politicians?
Yeah, even politicians.
Blimey, no way.
Wouldn't it be cool if they could, if they could hear this? But the truth is, they are starting to hear this because there's a lot of lobbying and stuff going on at the moment. Yeah. So, and they're listening because deep down they know there's something's just not quite adding up.
Well, I wish the rest of the electorate would spot that.
Something's a little bit out of sync, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, super helpful. I love the fact now that people who are looking in this direction are seeing like, oh my goodness, this is like gold dust, You get a sense of how your own psychological system works, and you get to see that you don't really need to control anything. You just need to understand it. That was a big shift for me. I think that I was a lot more controlling before, which made me more bossy, or it made me need to have things go the way I thought they should go. And then suddenly I just got to see, all right, that's not really how it works. Life happens through us, not to us.
What do you think of that then?
Yeah, I liked it.
Fairly typically Gregory Porter. You can't mistake him. It's him all over. And I like it. It's called Revival. It's our track of the bay today.
Nice name too.
Yeah.
He's pretty cool, right?
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
He's got a hat and everything.
and it looks good on him.
Exactly. Anyone else try to wear that hat? Nah.
Oh, are you a hat man?
No. I really cannot do hats.
Oh, I love hats.
Yeah, no, I'm not a hat person. I can't do a hat.
Isn't it funny, like we label ourselves?
I might try and get a stovepipe one day and see if I can bring them back.
But isn't it funny that we just do that we kind of label ourselves, yes, I'm a hat girl, or no, I'm a hat woman, or I'm this, or I'm that. We put these labels on ourselves, which are really, really restrictive, right?
Can be, yeah.
And so, and that's a really good example of how we have a lot of thinking about something. So, if I was to buy you a hat, And you were like, oh, I couldn't wear that. What if anybody saw me in that hat?
I'd have to wear it when you were around.
That's more thinking.
Yeah,
right?
Planning. Right. Oh, God, planning.
Oh, no, here she comes. I've got to put that silly hat on. But that's what we do. We kind of just have these, within our own imagination, I suppose, of how we should be. So somebody buys you a hat and then it's like, well, I have to wear it. Otherwise, she's going to think that I don't like it. And then she's going to be upset. And it's actually, none of us have got the power to do that for anybody else. And
I have got a woolly hat. Only for when it's really, 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 really cold.
Really cold, when you don't care.
Yeah.
When the self-image goes out the window.
Absolutely. And you know what? When it takes the elements to take all that away.
Right.
That ego. And what what will so-and-so think if I'm wearing it, if he sees me like this? No. You get cold, you don't care. That goes out the window, doesn't it?
Now, isn't that interesting? Wouldn't it be nice if we could all walk around and sort of wearing what we want in a way without thinking about what... So it comes down to what other people think. Yeah. Or what we think other people are going to think.
And actually, what other people think about us is none of our business.
No, but it's thinking upon...
Get on with it.
Thinking upon thinking upon thinking. And so when we get to... what I love about really understanding how my own thinking system works is that I see the cuteness in kind of humans getting caught up with thinking upon thinking upon thinking. I talk a lot about, there's these sort of three things, Dougie. I talk about who we are at our true essence and who we are at our core. And that's all that good stuff, those innate qualities, the raw materials of being human, if you like.
Whether we like them or not.
Yeah, but they're good, it's love and compassion and gratitude and resilience and well-being, and that's, so it's pretty cool stuff. So we've got that, whether we're wearing a woolly hat or not, right? Right? Or whether you've got, whether you've got on some bad boy Panama number, right? Panama hat.
I can't imagine me in that.
No, well, maybe we'll have a little hat party.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I might surprise myself.
I bring my hat collection. Yes. But so that you've got that stuff inside of you, and then I talk a lot about who we think we are, right? Now that's another whole story. And then there's who we want the world to think we are, right? So if we're talking about putting on hats or wearing certain clothes or putting on, that way, do you believe that you are your hat? Do you believe that you are the clothes that you wear? Do you believe that you are your outfits? do you
jeans and a t-shirt or tracky bottoms if I can get away with it?
Do you believe you are that onesie that you have on today? That flannelette onesie.
That would be great if I could come to work in my onesie. I wouldn't mind that at all.
But we put on clothes or we put on our outfits or whatever, but we know that we're not our clothes. We change our clothes, and metaphorically speaking, that's the kind of thing that happens with our thinking. We are not our thinking. That is a system that's available to us, that's happening constantly all the time, that is, running through us, creating all experience, and is constantly changing. It moves. That's what happens. So the power of thought is always present. It's behind every single human experience. But the kind of personal thoughts or the content of the thinking system, that changes. And the best news for me, the best news about that is because our feelings come 100% from sort of thought in the moment, because we know the nature of thought is that it changes, that means that our feelings change accordingly. It's like one system. Our feelings are a reflection of our thought in the moment. So it's like two sides to the same coin. They're one system. You can't separate them. They're inseparable. What we think is what we feel. What we think is what we feel. The more we think, the more the feel is real. Oh. I might do a little rap song.
Yeah, I think you should.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The more we think, the more the feel is real.
I'll get you a good beat.
But it is that kind of, as we think we feel, it happens at the same time. So if we are experiencing something that's very uncomfortable, that's normally why we do stuff to take us. We don't like that feeling, right? And what you call uncomfortable might be all right for me, or not for the next guy. So that's how it works. But because we understand that it's a constant kind of flow, it's a cycle that repeats itself. The power of thought is present. It's creating thinking, pops. Just all of a sudden, that's what happens, right? A thought pops in your head. It's like, where did it come from? That's the big question. When we talk about that next week. But, a thought pops in my head and it gets brought alive into a feeling. So that's the system, and then it repeats itself. That's good news for me, because if I've got an uncomfortable feeling, I know it's coming from my thinking. I know it's coming from thought in the moment. And that means I don't have to go and control all the elements outside of me, because it's gonna pass. Yeah. So this too shall pass is a very famous saying that you hear in many different sort of organisations or groups. And it is really true. This too shall pass, a little bit like the weather. So it's a bit drizzly today. Nice. Bit sprinkly, and it was so hot yesterday.
I know, weird.
That was really weird.
A bit strange, wasn't it?
For like 3 days, it's been like summer.
Yeah.
For me.
I did find myself saying, "Can you turn it down a bit?"
Yeah.
Although if it stayed like that all year, I'd be okay.
Right, because you'd be dressed like you dressed accordingly.
Right. Yeah.
You might have your little fan.
Yeah, always.
You might get your little fan out, yeah? And, you might not have your thermal socks on. You might be dressed accordingly. You might, that's what we do. We dress accordingly. But isn't that funny? Somebody can say, oh, it's hot, and somebody else says, no, it's cold. Somebody says I'm too hot. Somebody else says, no, I'm just right. Like, we're all creating our own experience of everything. Yet somehow we seem to have fallen into this kind of understanding that we often see the same as everybody else, or feel the same as everybody else, or think the same as everybody else, or experience the same as everybody else. So when you don't experience the same as me, if I don't like what I'm hearing coming from you, it's very easy for me to fall into that place of, well, what's wrong with you? Right? That's kind of how it was for me. Yeah. A decade ago. I used to find that I had that thought in my head a lot, like, what's wrong with these people? What's wrong with their thinking? That's something that was so obvious to me. And then it's like, wow, I just kind of used to think that everybody saw, we saw stuff the same. I mean, I kind of know that we all had a different perception, but really getting to see the way that we create something is super, super interesting, because what that means is I don't get caught up in, well, I'm right and you're wrong. I just get more caught up in being curious with like, okay, tell me more about how that looks to you. Because I've got a totally different experience of that. So I get more passionate and curious rather than walking around holding my head thinking, what is wrong with him? Right? So it's very freeing. Yeah. Really, really freeing. Imagine, yeah. And the only one who would suffer are ourselves. When we just, because we don't understand the world. Lots of things in the world don't make sense. But when we start to look in the direction of these separate realities and how they're created, it's like, that makes sense. So it's, I do a whole kind of a workshop. I do a whole retreat on just separate realities, just exploring that one subject. It's like, we have a unique experience of situations, circumstances, events, and other people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes more sense. What happens is suddenly we start to make sense of life rather than be caught up in the kind of nonsense. And that's where I find where we beg to differ, and we get caught up in we get taken down rabbit holes, right, of trying to prove our own points. Have you ever had that, Dougie, where you might disagree with somebody else and you've got your version of the truth, or you've got your belief, and they've very clearly got a very different one, and they seem to think that by telling you many, many times their version is going to change your mind. Does it work?
No.
Right? So that's really cute for me when somebody actually what they were trying to do is make you think like they think.
Yeah.
Like when you
I
give
keep
that
repeating it.
Right, yeah. Or by saying it louder. Or by saying it's like, listen, I'm not deaf. I've just got a separate reality to you. It interests me is the word love because I use that word quite a lot. I like to talk about the energy of love and we only have one word in the English dictionary as such, but in other cultures they have different words for different types. So, there might be more of that kind of family love or romantic love or personal love or self-love. But so I think, because that's a word I talk about a lot, I think I like to clarify that when I'm talking about it. Because if somebody thinks that love's like, oh, you love him or you don't love him or you love her or you don't love her, that kind of thing. I'm talking about, when I talk about love, I'm talking about it at an unconditional, kind of more universal. And I suppose that's the word that I use for life. For aliveness, it's that energy that we're all here having any experience, whether we label it good, bad or ugly. It's just the fact that we can have experience. And there's a beautiful quote. You were talking about that book that you've been reading, Dougie, Michael Neal. He points a lot to a guy called Sydney Banks.
Yes.
Yeah, and Sydney Banks has got a quote which says, if the only thing that people were not afraid of was their own experience, that alone would change the world.
There's a few really good quotes in the Inside Out, Michael Neal's book, from Sid Banks, that make you go, whoa.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I think the most, I think why they sort of everyone points back to Sydney Banks is because he was somebody in the 70s who had this kind of like big kind of insight into the way the thinking system works. And because he was a really ordinary guy, he was like a welder, he didn't go to college or, he just had a sort of very normal education, worked in a factory, and saw something really, really clearly that he wasn't hearing from psychologists or sort of psychiatrists or psychotherapists, and he was trying to share with them what he'd seen. And it's so interesting that it's taken it took 30 years or so before it sort of entered into mainstream. That this guy, Scottish guy, or born in Scotland, but end up living on a place called Salt Spring Island, just off of Vancouver. And it's back in the 70s, and was trying to spread this message of something that he saw as clear as day. And he was like, oh my goodness, if everyone could see this, like this, this could change the world. And funny, isn't it, that things are discovered, if you like. So for me, what he was pointing to, Sydney Banks, is what we now see. We're on the verge of this huge paradigm shift in the world of education and psychology. And people would have met him and thought he was nuts, and other people would have met him and thought he was amazing.
Genius, yeah,
and even when things have been discovered in history, it's taken so many years for it to come into mainstream. But then suddenly it does. Like if something is what I would call truth, when we used to believe that the Earth was the centre of the solar system, which we did, and it was very different. We had different thinking back then. We had, there was different theories. And suddenly you get to see, how they believe the solar system works now. And it's like, okay, so all those old theories just fell away, because they didn't make sense anymore. So it's a little bit similar really in that way, that because we used to believe, that's the way psychology kind of pointed us, that situations, circumstances and things around us and other people can affect us, then we believe that to be true. And then that's what happens. It does affect us. But the moment you get to see that the foundations of that weren't really truth, and we get to see, that's not the way it works. Nobody has a power, or nothing out there has a power to put a feeling in me. That and all that stuff falls away. But you've got to see it for yourself to be true. So that's why people talk about having insights. It has to be seen from within to be true. Once you see that, or get a tiniest glimpse of that, it's like, for me, that's like, wow, that's life changing. It doesn't mean we always remember that. you know. So sometimes it does feel to me like the sun makes me happy. Now, I know that fundamentally that's not true, because I know that nothing has the power to make me happy nor make me sad. And it's not a problem for me walking around believing that the sun makes me happy. It's not a problem for me. Except, you know, if suddenly I'm going to be in a country for a month and there's no sun, you know, when I remember, oh yeah, that doesn't have the, you know, that doesn't have the power, then I'm going to be whatever I am, happy, sad, miserable, whatever's showing up, right? So in a way, we give our power away to situations, circumstances, events and other people. So if I believe that I'm okay as long as he's in my life, or as long as I've got that job, or as long as I've got that much money in the bank, or as long as the sun's shining, or whatever it may be, then I need to work very hard to make sure those things happen. Because if those things don't happen, it looks to me, oh, like that could have an effect and I might not be okay. Once we get to see we're okay at our truth, no matter what's going on around us, we don't jump into the sort of bucket of fear. You know, we just don't go there. Or we might go there, but we don't stay there for very long. Right? We don't stay there for very long. And that's what happened. It's sort of like, and that's why for me, understandings are just great, because it points us to truth. And when we're in truth, we're in the logic. And when we're there, it seems like life just keeps opening doors for us. So, you know, who wouldn't want to know more about this stuff?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
So how can people get hold of you?
So they can call me.
Yep.
They can just call me. So, and I'm on a Spanish number, 0034 646 816 625. And all my details are on my website, The Serendipity Experience. And I have a Facebook page and I have a YouTube channel.